If I die from a shark-related incident, that's 100% on me. I put myself in that situation and was essentially asking for it. The goal isn't to be high risk per se. It's more of like a calculated risk so that we can learn more, so we can learn to coexist and ultimately help save lives, humans and sharks. It's not that I'm trying to portray sharks as puppies. Puppies bite a lot of people. Thank goodness sharks aren't puppies. But they're clearly not monsters, and they don't get the credit they deserve for that.
How many sharks are killed every year?
Over 100 million sharks are killed every year. My method of research and learning is, I feel like, for the greater good, for humanity and for the environment, but it does come with a risk. And that's a risk that I'm taking on personally with my own life.
What's up, guys? I'm Leticia Buffoni. As a professional skateboarder and a racing driver, I'm used to taking risks. In this new podcast and video series, I'm meeting people from around the world who shares the same mindset. I'm going to find out what drives them and look deeper into the relationship between performance and pressure. This is the Team Ignition Show. What's up, guys? I'm Leticia Buffoni. I'm out here in Hawaii, so you're gonna hear chickens, you're gonna hear birds. It's natural. I'm here with my guest today, Ocean, and we're gonna talk about her life, about shark, about ocean, about everything.
Perfect timing.
Ocean, thanks for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you and get to know about your life, what you do, and thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'm Ocean Ramsey. I'm a shark and marine conservationist and scientist working with wildlife so we can learn to coexist and ultimately help save lives, humans and sharks.
What's your mission?
So my mission and purpose is ultimately to help people to gain an appreciation, understanding of sharks so that they can be safer in the water, so save the human lives, and at the same time, gain an appreciation and understanding so that they will help us to support conservation measures. So to save sharks is to save the whole ocean. Because if you can protect sharks, the things that kill sharks are killing a lot of other marine animals. And that's just better for everyone. It's better for future generations.
How did you get into sharks?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to grow up with parents and grandparents who love the ocean, obviously.
As we can tell.
Yes, as we can tell. And I was just really lucky to get to see sharks for what they are, which is another beautiful and important marine animal. And then as I learned more about them, I learned about their importance, their ecological role, and that systematically makes a lot of logical sense to have a predator in an ecosystem. It's like if one sick fish is allowed to stay within a school of fish, it's going to spread that disease to other fish. So you need those predators around, and that also drives evolution, right? Because then only the strongest and the fittest are going to survive. And same thing around coral reefs. And so I learned sharks are important. I saw for myself in my own personal experiences growing up what they're really like, which is actually generally more cautious than curious, extremely cautious, and generally extremely patient with people, way more patient than they really would need to be being such capable predators. And then later on in life, I saw TV and I saw this weird misportrayal of them as these monsters. And I'm like, well, that's not my experience. And I was really lucky to travel around the world and dive with over 30 species of sharks. And then I saw the fear that people had of sharks and how that ultimately led to them not caring if they were being killed. And I was like, okay, there's a problem here. One is people are living their lives afraid of sharks, and they don't need to be. They just need to learn more about them and gain some experience with them to have this nice coexistence. A lot of people think that what I do is just, I'm just protecting the human. But to be honest with you, it's so much of my work has been sort of just being this middle person where I'm trying to help people understand shark behavior so that they can peacefully coexist. And I'm also simultaneously trying to educate them so that they can help me to ultimately protect the sharks, because the sharks are important. And so I feel like I'm sometimes like a translator to humans, like, do this. And then with the sharks reading their body language, I've got to respond to that on behalf of the humans to create this situation where we can have a peaceful coexistence because I'm being so sensitive to their body language. And that was so important to me because growing up with the beautiful sharks out here, getting to know them as individuals, it's like if you came home and you see your dog every day and you know all the little nuances, of your dog and and you form a bond. It's like, and then somebody comes and just kills your dog. I'm not saying that they're like dogs, they're more like family members, with respect to the fact that they're wild apex predators. It's not that I'm trying to like portray sharks as puppies. Puppies bite a lot of people. Thank goodness sharks aren't puppies, but they're clearly not monsters and they don't get the credit they deserve for that. So it's like if people could just take a little time to educate themselves about not just the importance of sharks, but like if you go in the ocean, that's their home. That's the wilderness. I do like to say, like, for the record, if I die from a shark-related incident, that's 100% on me. I put myself in that situation and was essentially asking for it. So I know I get a lot of comments sometimes. People are like, you're going to die, and it's like, oh, it's just a matter of time. And I'm like, I'm doing this for more than 2 decades. And the thing is that, yes, I'm absolutely staying in the water during some of the most intense moments so that I can learn as much as possible so I can share that with other people to avoid those situations. Because ultimately, we are not separated. There are some people who are just going to stay on land, but they are still impacted by the health of the ocean and the health of shark populations.
What was the most intense moment you had with a shark?
Most intense moment was definitely something that was caused by a human doing something that they were told not to do. And so, we give this safety briefing and we say, hey, don't splash, don't randomly drop down deep in the water column. And this person, got on the boat and
Didn't listen.
And kind of did everything that they weren't supposed to do. And they bolted down and I blocked the shark who is responding and reacting to the potential mimicry of a prey item that this person was essentially mimicking. And so I would say that's probably the most intense moment. It was just, it's watch out for the humans, they'll sometimes.
What'd you do?
I grabbed the person and I MMA shoved that person back up on the ladder. And I got a 1-star.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
You stay. You get out.
No, and the thing is that I wasn't necessarily even surprised about it, but that's where I go back to like, hey, we've got to protect the sharks from the humans because we have a responsibility when we're taking people out there too, not just to educate them, but then to help correct them because they're out there for fun and enjoyment and learning. But a lot of times, like some people are just like not respectful. And even if that person, had suffered a traumatic injury, it's like, don't do that to the sharks. They've already got so much going against them. Over 100 million being killed and people don't speak up for them because they're so afraid of them. We don't need one more shark bite in the news because actually I've gone through the entire international shark attack file and even those statistics, the majority of them in the little tiny writing underneath, a lot of them are provoked. So people don't realize it. It's because a fisherman caught a shark and is just trying to get off the line. They pull it on the deck and the shark is trying to get away and it bites the person. So it's,
wow.
Yeah. So they really they're the
news
underdogs.
Don't really say that, huh?
And generally, 99.9999% of the time, non-confrontational, that even if they approach a human, no, not worth it. Doesn't smell like my prey item. Isn't splashing and thrashing around like an injured animal like my prey item. Now, when you get a desperate, starving individual, even though they can go a long period of time without eating, sometimes you'll get those occasional mistaken day bites. Or murky water, and there's natural fish schooling through there. Somebody's fishing nearby or whatever, and it's a mistaken idea. Bites can still happen.
Yeah, that's why it's very important for people to learn about sharks.
Yeah.
If something ever happens, what to do.
Head on top of the hand, lock out the elbow, stiff arm, keep that leverage in that space. Or ideally, plasticky rubbery fins or a GoPro pole, some sort of inanimate object. But looking and facing them and keeping that predatory body language versus turning your back and splashing and thrashing away like an injured prey item is definitely not the response. So.
How was swimming with the great white?
Yeah, it's incredible to get to work with white sharks for multiple decades around the world. I've been in situations where they've sort of, I want to say, lured me further away and then sort of cut off exits. But you can just sense a higher level of cognition with them. And I would have a lot of people that would come to learn about diving with me. And some of them were researchers, and we have to go out and set tags or set receivers or retrieve receivers. So we have to dive without a cage. And so being aware of their behavior and what to do if they approach you is really important. But more importantly is really seeing them coming. So I'd usually have people start in a cage and I'd say, okay, point to every great white you see the second that it enters your peripheral, because they move a lot faster than tiger sharks.
And they're way bigger too, right?
Yeah, they're bigger and they're faster. And so you've got to see them the second that they enter your peripheral. And so inadvertently they'd be like 1, 2, and they'll miss that third one coming up from behind because humans get distracted, right? And I even watched them outsmart humans who were given one task, which is just, here's a fish on the end of a rope, and you're going to dangle out in the water. And then when the shark comes by, the great white shark comes by, you're going to pull it out of the way. And inadvertently, you'll watch them, the white sharks, calculate their speed, their timing, the shadows, maybe from the boat or whatever it is. And they will try all these different approaches. And usually within less than 10 passes, they'll outsmart the human who's got one job, just to watch that. And when the shark comes, like, pull it out of the way. So it was really cool to watch that, to realize that, to be fortunate enough to do so many dives with them. But they are definitely an incredible predatory species. I have a high, healthy level of respect for.
Yeah, because that's what the media shows. You know, I grew up watching the media saying the sharks are bad for you, they'll kill you. You know, all they show in the media is that. So for the first time in my life, I'm like having a conversation with somebody that really knows about sharks. And yesterday I learned that they don't kill people. If you know how to behave next to them, like they're nice, they're like humans, you know, they're cool.
Yeah, I totally understand why people think that sharks would be monsters, because you only hear about them occasionally in the news, right? And occasionally, keep in mind, it's occasionally on the rare adverse interaction, or like these sensational films that really over dramatize. And it was so cool to see, like, when you first got in the water, you're like, right before you're like, okay, I'm nervous. And I'm like, that's understandable, because it's like, you know, apex predator 3 miles out in the open ocean. Like, that's totally understandable. Once you get in the water, it's like, you could see for yourself, it's like, they're right there. Mm-hmm. They could come up and try to bite you, but they weren't, right? So what happened, like, over time with, like, your mindset, where you realize that they're just kind of staying down there for the most part?
Yeah, I was like, they're safe. Like, I feel safe. The first time I was like super nervous, but then I was like, if they wanted to, they would come up. But they don't care about us. They're just hanging out.
Yeah. We literally had to make some noise to get them to, like, come up closer. I feel bad that people miss out on those experiences because they're so blinded by fear because of the way that sharks are usually misportrayed. I mean, it's true that they are apex predators. You shouldn't just jump in, right?
That's what I was going to say. Like, you got to, like, have somebody that knows. Like, I'll never go out there by myself. Like, I'll never do that because I want to know what to do.
Yeah, and thank you for being, like, smart and respectful that way. I'd be the same way with, like, bears. I'm like, I don't know. Do you look them in the eye? Do you make noise? Do you not make noise? It's very, like, specific. And that's just being respectful to each species, you know, is, like, adapting your behavior for this peaceful coexistence, because everybody's got a point and a role and stuff to play in it. Yeah. So it means a lot to, like, see people go through that transition from fear to fascination. Ultimately, I hope just, like, respect. So if policy changes come up or somebody says, like, oh, sharks, just kill them, you know, like, you could educate that shark fisherman who's just ultimately probably afraid that, hey, shark diving, sustainable, and it's more respectful. The goal isn't to be high risk per se. It's more of, like, a calculated risk so that we can learn more, so we can learn to coexist and ultimately help save lives, humans and sharks.
How do you react when you hear the news about a shark attack?
So it is true that, unfortunately, sometimes mistaken identity bites happen, or maybe there was a starving shark and it came across somebody that was surfing, splashing, diving. Usually it's more spearos that actually get approached, but the adverse interactions are very, very infrequent. It's extremely rare. That's why the news tends to highlight them. If it was happening every day, like, you'd just be like, oh, this is normal. And it could be happening every day if you think about the number of people that go into the ocean and the number of sharks that we can see on the drones that, like, swim past surfers, swimmers, and divers. But generally, you know, my biggest thing is that I just have the deepest condolences for families, of a victim or concern for somebody that's injured. And that's regardless of if it's a shark, if it's a car accident, like that's tragic. And I've lost people close to me in car accidents and things like that. So it's just, I don't really want to comment necessarily on something except for like condolences and sympathy. But ultimately, with my purpose and mission trying to help save lives and help people coexist, it's just a continuation of sharing the information on ways that we can help to avoid adverse interactions. Because there's a lot that we can do within our power, but there's always going to be that chance when you're out in Mother Nature, when you're in the wild, that an accident can happen. And as a surfer, I'm like, I've got my head out of the water and I'm splashing on the surface. So there's going to be that chance. I'm playing in their home. But again, if something happens to me, I'm in their home, I'm in their ocean, I've got my eyes out of the water, I'm not looking around, and I'm splashing on the surface, essentially asking for it. So,
have you seen the videos that are going viral on the internet in Florida? Those like, I think 2 or 3 sharks, like small sharks, but swimming like very shallow water, and some people are just in the water taking videos and photos. Did you see that?
I don't
It was
think
just
I
now, like a
saw
couple
that
weeks
one,
ago.
But it happens usually it's around summertime every year. You'll see like the news and stuff, it pops up. And that's because of the migrations that are happening around the world. So there's schooling fish that are moving, and you're going to get sometimes shoals of sharks that are following those schools of fish. And that's going to bring them in closer proximity a lot of times.
They get lost and they go to like shallow water, or they're just...
The fish will actually come in really shallow. And in Florida especially, there's a lot of night fishermen, and the night fishermen will sometimes bury the fish in the sand right at the water's edge, and then they leave in the morning, and guess who goes and swims right there?
Sharks.
And the people that are going to the beach in the morning. And so there's a lot of human implications in a lot of the adverse interactions when you really get the full story and look into it. And I've been, privy to get some insight into some things that have happened over time, and whether it's, shrimp farm discharge or cruise ship dumping or whatever it is, there's a lot of human implications. So being aware of where you're swimming, the time of day, the behavior of the other animals around you, whether it's little fish jumping out of the water or a sea turtle bolting off this way, or a sea lion or something like that going this way. Being sensitive to those things, because ultimately you're playing in their ecosystem, right? They don't have a refrigerator. They got to hunt. They got to do their thing. Yeah. So when you're in the ocean, try and look around or turn around if you're surfing. Minimize splashing and noise. And do try and stay in as shallow water as possible. Because even though a lot of times they do, usually they're going to prefer drop-offs in deeper water.
Mm-hmm. What about the time of the day? Is there like a specific time that they come? I surf too. That's why I'm asking a bunch of questions.
It's kind of going to depend on the location and the species. But on average, a lot of them are going to be a little bit more active at nighttime. And then during the daytime, it's going to be more of an opportunistic. And I'm generalizing because there's over 400 different species, and we're talking about like the entire world. So it's kind of gonna depend on that. But yeah, generally you wanna, if you can, swim where there's other people, and swim, when you've got clear water and better visibility, and more sunlight. So, I mean, if you're surfing off of South Africa, there's like no visibility there. So just don't surf in front of a sea lion colony or where there's like a river discharge.
Yeah, I don't think I'll surf in South Africa. That's too far.
I surfed there.
And how do you know when they're having like a strange behavior? Can you tell?
Yeah. To me, it's funny. It's called agonistic territorial body language and specific swim patterns. So I'm so cued in on their specific swim patterns and the small movements that are essentially exaggerated threat displays, that sometimes I'll be watching their movements and it's like they're screaming at each other. I'm watching like a full fight about to break out, and then I'll be right up here on the surface with some people that I'm guiding in the water, and the person will be like, "Can I dive down now?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like this person doesn't know what's going on," but that would be like literally like walking into the middle of a fight. And so you can become extremely sensitive, and I think people have a lot of fun when we make analogies with like their dogs or like their cats, or if they have horses or even chickens, are really funny to watch with their pecking order and the social hierarchy. Or just go to a park and watch some birds interacting. See if you can pick up on who's sort of that alpha bird and what's going on with that sort of pecking and social hierarchy order. What is the body language, the little fluff of the feathers and the movements that are happening right before a confrontation? How does that sound? How does that look? And it's a little harder with sharks.
Because there's no sound.
There's no sound, exactly. To train someone up to try and get them to the point where they can redirect a tiger shark, that's going to take a little bit more of a risk, because I'm coaching them up to an extreme position. And then ultimately, who goes in there to save that person if something's a little off? It's going to be me. A 20+ foot great white can easily like kill me if it wanted to, can swim away, can defend itself. But all she wanted to do was scratch up on the boat and go munch on a nearby dead whale.
How many sharks are killed every year?
Over 100 million sharks are killed every year. And
Wow.
that's such a, you know, when I usually ask people that, I'm like, how many do you guys think? You know, like if you asked audience, right? If you asked general public, I'm like, how many sharks do you think are killed every year? Most people, so I'll ask us on the boat, they'll be like 1,000, you know, or
I had no idea.
and then 100 million. You're like, how is that even possible that there's any sharks left? And that's the reality that we're facing right now, is that shark populations are down to fewer than 10% for most large species. So they literally are being brought to the brink of extinction. If you look at the entire world, the majority of it is covered in the ocean. There's over 400 different species of sharks. And so there once was a lot of sharks, because there needed to be 450 million years of evolutionary history. Like the planet, the ocean, and life, ecosystems, including the CO2 system, has evolved to incorporate them as a keystone species. So it's like you start wiping that out and there's negative implications, or a trophic cascade is what it's scientifically termed.
Wow.
But yeah, it's really, really sad to just watch them literally sort of like disappear in front of my eyes.
And how many people are killed by sharks every year?
That is a great question, because while people are so hysterically afraid of sharks, it's like if they would just, you know, bring in some statistics, and that's like millions and millions and millions of people go in the ocean every single year around the world, and an entire year, the entire world, it's fewer than 10 people die from a shark-related bite. So it's like, what should you really be afraid of? You should be afraid of skydiving. You should be afraid of car crashes. You should be afraid of slipping and falling, because that kills more people. And if you just stick to the ocean, right? Because a lot of people will be like, well, yeah, everybody's driving, everybody's on land, everybody's whatever. Just the ocean. Jellyfish kill more people. Drowning kills more people. So, you know, it's like, take it in perspective. They're not the monsters that they're portrayed as. We can see this incredible drone footage out where you see all these surfers and swimmers, and you can literally see great white sharks cruising around. So easy for a
Wow.
great white shark. I mean, we're doing it every day too, but we've got masks on, you know, but we're surrounded by sharks every day.
Every day you get in the water with sharks every day.
Mhm. Yeah,
Wow.
unless I'm unlucky enough to have to be stuck on there for some reason. But that's like, to me, it's, and you probably experience this yourself, when you're in the water with the sharks, you can't think about anything else. It's like you are there with your breath. I gotta breathe, I gotta time my breathing, and I gotta pay attention to the sharks. And just think about the benefit of that mental break, to take away all of the noise and chatter that goes on in your minds of all these things that you're thinking of, and to just be fully present in the moment where you have to pay attention to your breath, your movement, and the movement of the life around you. In this, like,
Even though
it's
when there's like
incredible.
5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we're lucky enough that we'll have over 50.
So you had to learn a lot about safety too, right? Because what about if something goes wrong? Like you got to know everything.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of, let's say, credentials and training for trauma. So at an instructor level, so I teach people what to do when a major accident happens. And that is a crucial thing to do, because what it does is, one, if you were ever in that situation, you need to know how to handle that to keep someone alive. But more importantly, running those trauma drills and going through all of that with our crew, is it allows them sort of to have a heavy seat with hey, these are the ramifications if you don't pay attention, right? You could kill somebody. So here's all the things that you can do to help avoid that situation. And so I think if anyone's going to go out and enjoy life to the fullest and take on these adventures, that it's talking seriously about, okay, how are you going to handle that situation if something goes wrong? And for me in particular, I wouldn't have been able to write the book on what you should know about sharks if I didn't stay in the water when things got intense. So I stay in the water so that I can see the process of escalation towards physical confrontation to the point that they actually come up to me and I have to push them off because of a territorial dispute or potentially a predatory approach. How would I know that if I didn't stay in the water?
You're brave. I could never do that.
Well, somebody's got to learn, and I just grew up with a good water skill set from either being raised in the ocean or natural free dive ability, and working with so many animals, growing up surrounded by so many animals, especially horses, because they don't make a lot of noise either. And it's subtle, small movements that tell you a lot about what's going to happen. They're a large animal that's next to you. And so translating that over to just being open-minded and learning their behavior and having those close calls, for sure. I've had those close calls, and the learning curve that I went through when I was younger was super intense. And that's why I want to teach other people so that they don't have to go through that, so that they know that splashing's going to mimic a potential prey item. You may get a shark rushing at you. That's why sharing the information is important. And as I do continue to learn, because I feel like going into the ocean and going and hanging out with sharks, you need to be really open-minded. Otherwise, you're not learning anything new. And I can't have learned everything in the last 20 years. I know they're still teaching me new stuff. But keeping that open mind is really important to not becoming complacent, because that's when accidents happen. Mm-hmm. So, of course, my method of research and learning is, I feel like, for the greater good, for humanity and for the environment, but it does come with a risk. And that's a risk that I'm taking on personally with my own life, not pushing it when I've got other people in the water. Mm-hmm. If I'm guiding people, then no, we're out early. We leave a big margin for cushion error. We know that behavior. But if I'm training somebody, to train someone up to try and get them to the point where they can redirect a tiger shark, that's going to take a little bit more of a risk, because I'm coaching them up to an extreme position. And then ultimately, who goes in there to save that person if something's a little off? It's going to be me. So it kind of comes with the territory of my profession, my position, and my personal choices of wanting to expand my knowledge and help others to learn, that I will be at a higher risk for a potential accident or injury. But I would hope that it wouldn't be because I'm complacent, that I assume anything in animal behavior, because I don't. I definitely don't assume anything. I try and treat each interaction as if it's the first time I'm interacting with that shark, regardless of if I've known that shark for, 3 seconds it's approaching me, or, 20 years. And swimming with Grandma Great White Shark. I call her Grandma Great White Shark because I encountered her. Yeah, she's old. All these cool scars on her face off the south shore of this island. Mm-hmm. And that's where my great-grandmother swam until the day that she died. And of natural causes in her sleep, not from a shark. But we encountered her just offshore of that spot where my great-grandma lived. And she's, all old scars. She's over 23 feet solid. So we've got a picture of her actually brushing up against our smallest one ocean boat.
That was the biggest one you ever seen?
Mm-hmm. 23. And she's one of the largest probably in the world, and largest swimming with a white shark. And I mean, 20-plus foot great white can easily kill me if it wanted to, can swim away, can defend itself. But all she wanted to do was scratch up on the boat and go munch on a nearby dead whale. And she didn't care about the dolphins that were literally brushing their tails right on her snout. Didn't really care about us. Wow. Just wanted to come up like a scratching post. It was so cool about that is that in 2005, right out here where you were diving with us, a great white shark swam up to the boat that my husband was on and started brushing up on the boat, scratching the boat. And some of the big pregnant tiger sharks will do that too. So when I saw her and I saw her behavior, I was like, oh,
she's pregnant.
She may be pregnant, but she just wants to use the boat as a scratching post.
You know everything, huh? Do you see white sharks all the time?
No, they're rare to see at the surface here because it's so warm. and they're warm-bodied, so they'll overheat at the surface. So they generally won't spend that much time at the surface. They'll usually be 300 feet and deeper when they're in tropical waters here. So
Wow, I didn't
so
know
it's
that.
it's really rare to see them here. They do come here probably following the whale migration. Their natural prey items like monk seals are now an endangered species. So where there used to be a bunch of seals here, and that would have provided nutrients and stuff for them, unfortunately, those guys got killed off too. And the whale populations were decimated too. So hopefully everything will rebalance over time. But again, shark populations are not really getting much of a reprieve because of the shark finning. And so if we could get that banned, that would be the best thing for marine ecosystems. Just ban shark finning. And the US removed themselves from the global fin trade. It was banned here in 2010. Actually, Las Vegas was ironically one of those places that a lot of places were serving shark fin soup for a long time. So I'm glad that they're out of the fin ban. But if you guys see stores and restaurants and stuff like that that still serve shark meat or shark fins or any kind of shark product,
I've seen it.
That's good. Yeah, I think people are becoming more aware. It was really important to get the sharks that we grew up with protected. And so it took 6 years of dropping everything, working with politicians, working with the community, but we ultimately got the law here in Hawaii passed to fully protect mano. Mano is sharks. So it's so nice to be able to take people out. And now it's not just education and helping people to coexist so that they can stay safer no matter where they go in the ocean, but also to know that the sharks that we grew up with, that they can have a more peaceful coexistence. It's not just some random person going out, and being like, oh, I'm just going to kill them because they think they're a monster.
Yeah. How do you tell somebody to learn about sharks? Just go on Google, buy your book.
Actually, there's some of the stuff out on Google is not very
so don't
factual.
go on Google to learn how to behave next to a shark.
Everything's on Google. But for resources, I obviously spent more than 2 decades working full-time with sharks. I spent more than 4 years writing a book that was then cut down in half by the editor. And that book is What You Should Know About Sharks. It's specifics on shark safety, behavior, body language, and human interactions. And then I've got an online course, so you can watch videos, and then you'll hear the narration about the behaviors that you're seeing. And it's got all the safety stuff in there, all the way down to how to use a tourniquet and trauma response, which I feel is something that should go hand in hand with any type of thing. And then I've got obviously a lot of social media out there, mostly on Instagram, where I'll share techniques. I've got free advanced shark diver videos for people that want to actually dive in the water and learn some of those redirection techniques for emergency purposes. And I've got a couple other books and some other stuff. But One Ocean Diving offshore, we've got a whole team that we trained extensively, and they take people out 7 days a week.
Wow.
And it's so nice because within 2 hours, you go from fear or lack of understanding to mind-dumped information and an immersive experience. And it's open to everyone in the world because who doesn't want to come to Hawaii? And the sharks are just 3 miles, 15 minutes offshore, and people leave empowered.
I'm definitely coming back. I want to bring my friends.
Yeah, I love it.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Amazing to get to know about you, about sharks, and I'm going to start following your stuff, and it's really cool stuff.
And I appreciate everything that you're doing and sharing this with other people and having that adventurous, fun lifestyle and being, fun but smart about it. You know what I mean? So keep doing you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next time on the Team Ignition Show. In skateboarding, first thing we learn is to fall. Do you want to warm up more, or are you ready to do it?
I think I'm pretty ready.